Hey everyone, welcome back to another excellent episode of Kicking It with Casca. As always, I've got my good pal Mal. Mal, how are you doing today?
Hey, everybody. We are doing good. We are excited. How are you, Han?
Oh, I am ready to rock this episode out
Oh,
because
yeah.
we are joined by not just one, but two, making it a dynamic duo. We've got a teacher principal dynamic duo for us today. We have Jess Harris and Shannon Cauble, and they are coming to us from Mayflower Mill Elementary. Now, you ladies, tell us where is that? Because we're in Kansas and you guys definitely aren't.
We're in Lafayette, Indiana, home of the Purdue Boilermakers.
Ah,
Boiler up, boiler up.
you guys aren't gonna
Wow.
like me because we're in Lawrence, home of the Jayhawks. So Purdue and
Oh,
yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry
oh.
about that. But we'll still get along today, I promise. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started with the two of you and just tell us a little bit about yourselves, your journey into education, and then Mallory and I have literally been dying to know about your climb initiative that you guys do at school.
We
So
gotta know.
yeah, we got to know. Like, where are we climbing? What are we doing? What kind of shoes do we need to climb there? So we'll get
That's the most important part.
but let's go ahead and start off with Shannon, who is the principal.
Yes. So I started out in elementary education, and my first real job, I taught alternative middle school. So I had all the kids in the county that were either expelled or on probation.
Whoa.
And so I did that for a while. And that's when I decided like there has to be a better way as far as like these really awesome kids are not fitting into like the mold of traditional school. And so, how do we change traditional school so that everybody can be successful? So, that was kind of like my philosophy, so to speak. So I started teaching in public school, and then I've been an assistant principal. This is my 14th year at Mayflower. Um, so we just continue to see that need, and behavior and emotional support and social emotional learning has always been a big priority for me. Um, and I met Jess when we were at Klondike together. And so when I went to Mayflower, I brought her with me.
You took
We
her.
love a package deal.
I
That is awesome.
stole her.
We also love any principal who is big into SEL. So thank you for that.
And
Uh,
we also love Klondike bars.
also true. Also true. Jess, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I've been teaching for almost 20 years. And so I did start at a previous school. I've taught kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. And I think I came to this work just kind of naturally because from my first year of teaching, my favorite kids were always the ones that challenged me the most and struggled the most. And even as a first year teacher, I always had character traits on my wall. I always wrapped in a lot of social and emotional learning just throughout the day. It was never like a 20-minute window of my day, but we talked about it in everything that we did, the character traits that we were building. And so I just fell in love with these kids, seeing how much growth they could make when you really poured into them and showed them their potential. And it seemed like every year they all came my way. So coming here to the mill, we had definitely a big need. And after a few years, one thing that we noticed that we were really struggling with was, just a super high rate of suspensions. And, because of Shannon's background, because of the kids I'd worked with, we both knew that, the kids were, this process was happening because they had lagging skill sets. Like they weren't able to do the things they needed to be able to do to stay at school. But yet all we had in our toolbox was, I mean, we had lots of other things prior, but when the discipline got to the point that we had to come up with some type of consequence. Like we had suspensions like every other school, and we just knew that that wasn't effective and it wasn't working. So that's when I changed roles, and she and I developed this program together. And so now I'm able to work with kids in lieu of out of school suspension.
That
Awesome.
is awesome. And what a great duo you are. We love having great relationships as school counselors, and you can just see this right here. I love that. Jess, you mentioned your program, and we love the name of it, and it's an acronym. And you know, in education, we love the acronyms.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, what it's called, what it stands for. We want to know all the deets.
C.L.I.M.B. stands for Children Learning to Independently Manage Behavior. So That's the goal when they come in here. It's not your old school ISS where kids are just like in a cubby, just doing their work and there's no interaction with adults. And then, when their number of days are done, they're back in class. The goal of the program is that it's a classroom just like all other classrooms in the building. And so while they're here, they are keeping up with their academics, but they're receiving direct instruction in the specific behavioral skill that they're struggling with. So the classroom is highly relational, just like any other elementary classroom would be. We're doing small group instruction and we're doing one-on-one things and we're doing a lot of things to help the kids be more successful once they do return to their classroom.
I think something really important that Jess hasn't tooted her own horn about, but because because of the program, like when it first started, it was like everybody, well, let's get them to suspension so they can go to Jess's room because Jess is awesome, right? Like I'm just gonna keep referring them because Shannon eventually is gonna just be like, well, you're at the point of suspension, so it's time to go to Jess's room. So over time, the suspensions have gone down, or the climb full-time climb trips have reduced, and part of the reason that it has is because it's evolved into also like tier 2 intervention supports. So we've tried to build capacity. We talk about like raising the tide. And so like all of our staff have gone through lots of training, but also Jess is able to support kids before they get to that point of desperation.
That's awesome. So started out reactive and now is more proactive, which is what we love to see. That is awesome, ladies.
Yeah, we started with this as a reactive system because we just knew the first thing we have to do is keep our kids in school. We just have to. Not only do we want them here with us learning, we wanted kids to see, and I tell kids this all of the time, like we don't want them to think there's anything like naughty enough they can do that makes us want to give up on them, even for one day, even for 2 days. We want them here no matter what. And when they're not here for their academics, it hurts our whole school. So there's lots of reasons that we want our kids to be here. And so we did start that way. But as we've worked with our whole staff, and this is what's super important for schools to understand, is like having this program isn't just going to be this magic button in your school. Shannon did a lot of really great things and were able to give us a lot of professional development where at the tier 1 level, we were able to build a really strong tier 1 foundation where our teachers are using neuroscience in their classrooms and they're teaching neuronaz, and this is happening school wide. So really, as our tier 1 became stronger, we had less suspensions, less kids coming for climb, and then I was able to be, more available to our tier 2 kids. So there's lots of different layers of support. The other thing that I think is really neat is that when kids complete the program and go back to their classroom, this room kind of turns into a resource room for them. So they don't have to get suspended again to come back because we build really close connections with them while they're here. We tell our kids we love them. In this room, we're a family. They want to come back and see us, and we don't want them to get in trouble to do that. But we also know that they're just going to need the ongoing support. And so for teachers listening to this, or for our teachers, we would kind of help them think about it like academics and say, if you have a student that's a couple years below level in reading, you can't send them to your interventionist for 3 to 5 days and expect them to be at level.
Ooh,
And so when we have kids that are socially and emotionally a couple years behind where they should be, they can't come to climb for 3 to 5 days and magically be socially, emotionally at the level of that we want them at. We know they're going to need ongoing support. And so when the kids complete the program and they're back to class, there are lots of different ways that they still utilize our classroom ongoing for the remainder of the year.
That's
And
awesome.
Hannah has a really cool quote about that. And she even made a sticker. Talk to us about
What is
that.
it for a minute? Yeah. So in the counseling world, we always say that, and this isn't even my quote. This is Cindy, what is her last name? Bridget.
Yep.
She said,
From
schools
Wisconsin.
are crockpots, not microwaves, right? So same thing for you. We are a crockpot, baby. It could take a while for you to see the gains and the results, but they're still happening, right? We're still going to tell you all the ingredients that are going in the crock pot. We're telling you what we're doing, what we're up to, but it might just take a little bit longer than this microwave approach, if you will. Jess, you said a lot of things that I love. One, I love that you talked about tier 1 because as counselors, we know that is prevention. That is where we are going to bolster up so that we don't have to worry as much about tier 2 and tier 3. And that sounds like what you guys are doing. And you said, talked a little about neuroscience. What kind of things are your teachers teaching? I'm so curious.
Shannon, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we kind of started with like foundationally, like the ACEs study, the background and things like that. And then we did some work with Lori Desatel and her group.
Dr.
And
D, we love
yeah,
her.
yeah. And so we have some expectations that everybody that comes into our building knows that we just have some norms. So everybody has some kind of a community circle in their classroom. And so, we work really hard to build relationships, but we also very intentionally have lessons about brain science. So students kindergarten through fifth grade, they know the parts of their brain, they know what those parts do. They know that they do their best learning when they're in their prefrontal cortex. And they know that when they're under stress, their amygdala might go off. And so it's funny, I hear stories from parents that say, well, I had to take my kiddo to Riley Hospital, and she was talking to the doctor, and all of a sudden she just started going, I'm really nervous, and I think my amygdala is going off. And he's like, she's 5. What are they
Awesome.
teaching you guys? So the kids know the parts of the brain, and we're very intentional with making sure all of our new staff know those things. We do focused attention practice, lots of mindfulness, breathing. Our teachers are encouraged to do breathing multiple times per day. Um, we also do brain intervals to wake the brain up, keep lessons novel so that kids are engaged. And let's see what else. Every room has a calming corner, calming space,
Yeah.
all the way from the library to the gym to the art room. Everybody knows that there's a space that they can go to regulate with timers and materials and all those kinds of things. So we try to have some things that are definitely expectations and norms, and we make a point of training on it every single year. So
Wow. So you have
That
a
is
whole
so cool.
toolkit for like the whole school, which is awesome. Now, there was a couple on there that I'm gonna have to ask, like, what are brain intervals called? Maybe it's the blonde hair. I don't know. But but what does one do for that?
yeah, so Jess, you're gonna do the piece okay. Show them the piece okay and tell them why.
Okay. So what we've learned about our brains is that, there's this. Have you ever been driving to work and you're driving and you get all the way home and you're like, I don't even remember any of the turns
Yeah.
that I took, right? And that's because our brains are able to filter out any non-essential information. So when something becomes routine, we can kind of go into that like daydreamy state where we're really like we're awake and alert, but we're not really paying attention to things around us. And when our lessons become too long, depending on the age of our kids, often our instruction becomes that non-essential information that's in the background and they are like not really with us anymore. And so typically in classrooms, you'll see teachers will do like brain breaks, and it might be like something like a go noodle or, just dance. And typically that takes, quite a few, at least 4 or 5 minutes for the brain break, and then another 4 to 5 minutes to get everybody back down. When really we just need to waken up our brain again and get both the left and right hemispheres, talking and alert again. So when you add something that's novel, and gives us a little dose of stress, and when we have to pay attention to something that's a little bit more complex or novel, it forces our brain to kind of come back into action. So if you hold up like a peace sign, I always say it. I always say
I
peace
was
sign.
like,
I call it the wrong one. Hold up a peace sign. Hold up an okay sign. Okay, and now try to switch them. Like it's really hard, right? So these are things that we can do that are a little bit more research based. They take a lot less time. You can do it literally in the middle of the lesson, stop and do some type of brain interval. It might be only 30 seconds out of your instruction, but it takes those kids who were starting to lose, and all of a sudden in a really fun and novel way, it awakens them back up so their brain is primed and ready for new learning, without, turning your room into chaos. It's also a bit more scientific. A lot of the different things, a lot of the different brain intervals that we do cross the midline, right? It might be like that you're grabbing your ear and your nose, and then you're switching those, things like that cross the midline. So we're doing them in a way that on purpose is getting both of those hemispheres fired up and ready to keep going.
We also sometimes encourage, because teachers, they want to see that it's also academic. So, it might be like, if you can tell me the definition of this, touch the top of your head, or try to write your one takeaway with your non-dominant hand,
Mm.
or, those kinds of things, so that you're also reinforcing what's happening in the classroom. And so it just kind of enlivens it. So a lot of times, well, I'm doing a brain break. Well, there's nothing wrong with a brain break where they're getting up and dancing and moving. There's a time and a place for that. But brain intervals are not like scheduled necessarily. It's more sporadic, because if you do it every day at 10:15, then it's not novel anymore, right? If we
Right.
say, oh, it's time to do peace, okay, you can't keep doing the same thing.
Well, and I'm
Oh, and
loving
what
this
a great,
because we've got 40 minutes as a counselor, like for each class. And so if I stop and do, okay, we got to do a brain break for my kindergartners. We're now, like you said, 4 minutes in, 4 minutes out. You're about at 10 minutes. And now I only have 30 minutes left in my lesson. I mean, this is a great thing for any educator.
Yeah. What also is really neat is they're all hard. I mean, you're not really supposed to be able to do any of them super easily, right? Because if you can just switch those signs back and forth all day, it's just another routine and you're going to go right back to not paying attention to what you're doing. So it's supposed to be novel and tricky. And what that also gives our kids a chance to do is practice something that's challenging and hard in a fun way. And so many of our kids that come from hard places, they don't have that resilience. They try something new, they get super frustrated. And so even though this is just a small little 30 seconds of our day, it's just another dose of them trying something that's minimally stressful that they can do. And usually, they're giggling, they're laughing with their neighbor, and they're realizing that when we try something for the first time and we can't do it, like it's okay.
I love that.
that is so cool. And so many different ages can use that too, not just elementary.
It was fun for me, and I'm an adult.
I know, I'm sitting here
I know
still
we're all
today.
laughing.
Now,
And think about like the relationship when you are doing something hard and you're all laughing and giggling and trying and like, oh, you could do it really well. Like that's also community building. That like
absolutely.
noticing what other kids can do and laughing together.
Now, is there somewhere that our listeners could go to find a bunch of these, or are these ones that you've made up, or how do we get access to more than, I mean, this one was great, but
And the ear and the
yeah.
Yeah, ear, nose, grab. Dr. Lori, she has a lot on her website. I think it's Revelations in Education. That's where we initially got started with them. And she does such a great service as she goes through her cohorts with Butler University. She puts a lot of the projects and the things that her students have created on there. So if you go through there, there are tons that you can find just that are free. But you can also Google them. They're pretty easy to find.
and
Perfect.
they're all called brain intervals.
Mhm.
Awesome. Love that. Well, and we've talked about relationships. We've talked about that connection. And you all are in Indiana and we're in Kansas. And it sounds like you know some fellow Kansans that you
Yeah,
work with.
yeah. We have lots of buddies out there in Kansas.
Love that. So, not just in Indiana, this is all over, folks. We love that. And Shannon, how cool for an admin to completely back this. I love that. So, you have done it for 10 years. Is that right?
The Climb program, yes.
That is so cool. And so, for those listeners that are not elementary, how would you help them, like in middle school or high school? What some advice for them?
Yeah, that is something that comes up quite a bit. And I think like having that safe space. And if you were going to give, if you think about, I was going to give somebody in school suspension, which is still a removal, and it still kind of gives those vibes of you're sitting in a cubby by yourself, not interacting. It's a punishment, right? I'm going to take you away and you're not going to be around your friends. So if that still takes a level of supervision. So if you take the idea of it's not supervision, it's connection and it's teaching. So there might be times when, yeah, you're gonna have to sit and do some work, but then there's also times where you're talking about the hallway and what's going on, and you can learn a lot about the kids and what's happening in their lives, what their perception is, if they're always getting in trouble in the hallway, what's going to help you. um, and you can kind of let the kids lead because they can articulate a little bit better like what is happening and what they need. um, so I think middle school and high school, again, it's the connections and it's having that space that they are still learning. Their brains are not fully
Right.
developed yet.
Right.
There have
Jess, you've worked with some different schools.
Yes, we've had some middle schools that have come here to observe our program. I've gone to some middle schools and helped them get started because really the framework of the system can be utilized at any different levels. The work that you do with the students might be different, but they have not had to modify too much from, sort of the bones, the structure that we've created here. And the other thing that we do that we also do school wide is restorative justice. So that's a huge component of this program too. And that's definitely something that middle schools really implement well. So when you can combine this safe space with, instruction on the lagging skill set, and you are able to combine it with some restorative work that you can do with that student and with peers or classrooms where harm was done or staff members, that's something that they've seen a lot of success within middle schools as well.
That's awesome. So if let's just say I'm a student and I've got a lot of lagging skills, I'm not being a very good friend, my behavior is kind of out of whack, I just need a lot of help. What would it look like when I came in? Like, what would a day look like for me in your program?
Well, as far as like what we would work on, I would, we always do an intake meeting at the beginning because parent involvement is super important and we get 100% parent participation, which nobody ever believes, but we do. And so first we start with getting, the opinions of our stakeholders, like what are those biggest priorities that we want to work on? And so I collaborate with the classroom teacher, with our administrators, and with the students' parents. Sometimes they're like, well, I've got a list of things I would like you to work with.
Right.
Let me give you my checklist.
Yeah. And we kind of narrow down the things that are the top priorities. It's typically probably what they were, eligible for suspension for in the first place. And we work on those first. But as far as what their day looks like, our daily structure, we always start with our community circle. I call it breakfast club. And it's not only the kids that are here in our program, because while they're here in our program, it's a self-contained setting, like this they're with me all of the time. But also through tier 2, we have identified students throughout the building that really benefit from a soft start because they struggle with that transition from either home to school or the bus to school. And so we kind of have this mixed group of, K-5 students who come for breakfast club, and we do some relation building things like we check in with our nervous systems. We pay attention to what other people are reporting they are showing up at this morning. The kids know we have norms built in. The kids know that I'm paying attention to other people who might report that they're at a 5 or, whatever the way we're reporting that day. If they have a negative number or a negative emotion that they're reporting, these kids have learned that if they see them out at recess or in the cafeteria in the hallway, they go up and check on them. Hey, your number was a 5 today. How are you doing now? So they kind of become a family. They look out for each other. We do wish you wells where they're able to talk about people that they're worried or they care about, and we send wish you wells. We do about a 20-minute just more like a generic social skills lesson at that time of the day that's good for all kids. And we do focused attention practice where we end with some breathing before we get ready for our academic load. And then throughout the day, we have scheduled in time to work on their academic instruction that's provided from their teachers. So they're doing the same work that their peers are, so that the goal is when they come back, the teachers aren't scrambling to keep them, to get them caught back up. Their parents aren't scrambling. But then we also have some targeted behavior lessons that are built in throughout the day. So we do about 45 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon where we're really working with the kids on those particular skill sets we identified. We also do X, which is your friend Meg. We build time in for, we make sure to build time in for regulation through pattern repetitive movement, right? So we do desk drumming, we do X. We do some mindfulness time after lunch where we're doing some guided focused breathing. And so the kids are getting, opportunities to practice lots of different strategies to help them remain regulated. And because we do that, whole school wide neuroscience, the kids also understand why they're doing it. So when we do regulation, they're not just doing X because it's fun to play with balls that bounce and make noise. They can tell you that they're doing it because that rhythm helps regulate their brainstem and will help them make them feel safe so they can learn.
That's awesome.
Man, I don't know about you, Hannah, but I'm ready to go be a student in that classroom.
Listen, the amount of notes, I'm going to have to listen to this again to make
This
sure I
is
get all my,
phenomenal.
it's awesome. Um,
And
so
one of the really cool things that Jess has done, and I feel like it has really spread, is that because of the community that she's built within her classroom, some older students that have come become really good mentors for younger students. And then teachers have seen how well that works. And so they have found ways to utilize their resources a little bit differently. So like in our school, every classroom teacher has a buddy classroom that's off grade level, but it's not just kind of like when I taught third grade, like we just read with our buddies once a week and it was cute and whatever. But I've had kindergarten classrooms teach fourth graders how to do Balavaz. And so they've paired up with their buddies and they've done Balavaz. They do STEM projects, but they also we have like fifth graders that know Balavaz that will come and do Balavaz with a kindergartner or a first grader or take them on brain breaks or do heavy lifting breaks with younger students. And I've seen kids who have said, "Oh, don't worry, Mrs. Harris, I got it." And the kiddo that just needs this constant tapping to do their work, they'll just start doing it because they've seen Mrs. Harris do it. And so they're like, we've got this. You're busy.
Wow.
But teachers see that too. And so they find different ways to support each other that they would not have done otherwise.
that is awesome.
So amazing.
I love that it's a whole school approach. It's not just a classroom, it's the whole place. That is, that's really, it's remarkable, honestly.
It's really just become part of our culture that this is just how we do things here. And, the first year or two, as we were doing like these breathing practices, we'd get heckled. Some of the older kids would be like, I'm not doing that. That's weird. And now it's just the norm. And so we'll see older students and younger students walking in the hallway together, and you'll hear these fourth and fifth graders asking them, like, what was making you upset? And like, were you in your amygdala? Well, this is a type of breath that I like to do in my classroom. And they'll be coaching them just like any of us would. So what's really neat is that when you change your culture that way, well, a lot of things happen. For one, it just normalizes that it gets rid of that culture of winners and losers, right? Like they're not good kids and bad kids. Like we're just humans and this is our biology. And sometimes we have rough days and we struggle and we can support each other because we're a family. Um, but it also builds capacity in your school because times are hard right now and you can't have one person in your building that's going to fix all the problems. And so we built capacity in our staff, and they're doing such amazing work in their classrooms. They're building that capacity in their students. And so, we have a whole wealth of people here in the building that are willing to coach and help kids who are struggling. And it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be an administrator, and it doesn't even have to be a teacher. It can be one of our own students.
That
I
is
think
so cool.
a
And how
really cool,
empowering for them.
Hmm.
I would say a really cool change from when Jess and I started, because we came the same year, I think. Was it the
Mm-hmm.
same
Yep.
year? When we first started, it would kind of people would in some ways talk about like, well, they're in that classroom or they were other people's kids. Or I don't know if I should correct that kiddo running in the hall, or I don't know if I should, that student has a hat on. I don't know, like there was a lot of like boundary, like people didn't really know what their boundaries were, and it was that person's kid. And now I would say one of the biggest ahas is that like every kid in the building is everybody's kid. And so, if somebody is upset, somebody's coming around and saying, "Hey, buddy, can I help you? You look upset." Um, and so that mindset shift of like, we are a family where everybody's kiddo is a big deal.
So
I love that.
shift for your staff. I know sometimes you kind of get a mixed bag when it comes to teachers and staff buying into stuff like this. And I know some are like, okay, let's dive right in, and others are like, let's dip the toe, and some are like, I'm out. Like this sounds like voodoo. Like what is this? So was that a hard sell, or was everybody on board? I know educators a lot of time want to know how did you do it?
It was terrible.
We love the honesty.
Are you kidding? We had some hard years.
So they were thinking it was voodoo magic. Okay,
It was,
we're not
yeah.
doing this. Uh,
Yeah, it was rough for a little while. And like some people moved along and that's okay. Like that's what needed to happen. But like the more that we learn and um the more progress that we saw with our kids and the more like happy we were as adults, because that's the other piece of it is like if we believe in these things for kids, we believe in them for adults too. So we like also deeply care and love each other, and care about how people feel and what they need and what they're going through. um
well, and that probably helps with burnout too for your
yeah,
staff. I mean, because we don't just care about the kids, we care about everybody. It doesn't matter which side of the hallway you're on, we're here for everyone, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would say as a teacher from this perspective here at school, what that's we have so many amazing teachers here that we are able to retain and they work so hard. And it to brag on Shannon a little bit because she won't brag on herself, the way that we work with our kids, we meet them at their level and we prioritize their basic needs over anything else. Like we love our kids and we prioritize taking care of their basic needs. Shannon does that for our staff. So, she takes care of us as moms and wives and dads and friends. And she looks at us, as like the humans that we are before that we're just on her payroll. Right. And so if we have an issue with our family or we are like really wishing that we could see, an award our kids getting at a different school or whatever, like Shannon is the first one to say, like, we're going to make this happen. Like, and we know right now is not an easy time to get away. There's a sub shortage, there's a staffing shortage. And like Shannon will say, I'll take your room, I'll be there. Like, you have to be a mom first, or if somebody's sick in your family, you take care of yourself first. And when you're gone, don't worry about what happens at school because we're a family and we are going to take care of you. And there are a lot of schools where you don't feel that freedom to know it's okay to take care of this big need that I have first. And I can do it without feeling guilt. And I can do it because I know I have an administrator that loves me and she cares more about me than just like my employment and the job that I'm doing today.
I love that.
Well, and like we talked about earlier, kids feel that.
Hmm.
And when they see happy teachers, 9 times out of 10, they're happier. And Shannon, that speaks volumes from you. I love that.
She always tries to brag on me. They make it easy.
Well, they
You deserve it,
gotta
Queen.
let her do it. Absolutely. It sounds like you are an awesome leader in your building. And we knew that actually before we even hit record, because what was the snowflake rule? We found out.
We love this rule.
Anna, what's your snowflake rule?
The snowflake rule is if there's snow, and I don't need the proof of the snow. The snow can be at your house and not at my house. Like if there is snow, even one flake of snow, then you should wear jeans or yoga pants or something comfy to come to work because
Love
I
that.
just want you to come to work,
I love
even
that.
when it's cold.
You are
And do
awesome.
people do a better job if they're in a dress or slacks?
I think they actually do a better job when they're comfy.
Boom.
Who is she? Shannon for
Who is Shannon?
Because when my yoga pants go on, I mean I'm feeling good, right?
We
I'm
are
like turbo
flexible.
speed when I'm in yoga pants. I don't know what happens. I feel like I can really do stuff. I'm
I get
agile.
around the hallway
That's
better
right.
when I'm
I can
shoes.
crawl on the floor with the kindergartners better. I mean, the whole day is so much
Exactly. I
True.
feel like I can do like log rolls down the hall when somebody's
Log rolls.
log roll.
like a video of that if we could
Yeah, if we
footage.
could have proof of that from the school cameras, that'd be great.
I think we probably have it.
Well, ladies, before we wrap up, this has been awesome.
Oh,
Like
phenomenal.
wealth
We
of
could keep
knowledge. You guys
rolling.
are a treasure trove duo. Like I'm all these ideas are just fantastic. If a school was like, this sounds great. This
Mhm.
climb program sounds awesome. All the things that they're doing, how would they get started with something like this? Is this I know it's something you've created, um, but where do we go?
How do we climb, if you will?
anyone could definitely reach out to us for information. And I don't know if it's easy, like if you want us to give you our information after this, we're happy to do that. We have both helped lots of schools get started. Um, there are often, conferences that educators go to, some of those big trauma informed conferences like ATN or SDAC. I'll be at the SDAC one in April.
Me
You can hear about
too.
things like that. Good, we'll get to see you. But really just reach out to Shannon or I and we can try to guide you as best as we can to get started. And
So great.
lots of schools have. So that's really exciting. We love knowing that there are other people that are finding value in keeping their kids at school and meeting them where they're at.
Okay, and I have to tell you, I am always in my head, I'm singing The Climb by Miley Cyrus.
Okay, so I have to tell you something really funny because I think if I recall, that is kind of how it started.
No,
Oh,
I
I
made the
love it.
acronym after.
should we? I hope we don't have to give like royalties to her for this.
No, don't tell Miley.
Don't tell much. Don't tell
She
Miley.
inspired us.
Miley. She's just being Miley. Buying herself flowers. It's fine.
I could have gone with Wrecking Ball.
Well, it's kind of like you did. You flipped it though, right? Like you just came in and did the whole thing.
I
Yeah,
love
I
her.
think she's kind of run my life. I
Yeah.
owe it all to her.
I
That
guess
is so
listening.
cool.
See if she's putting out some new jams because this will be like a crystal ball.
Yes.
Maybe she will hear this and will give us all the money and all the kudos. I mean, with her
Why
dad,
wouldn't she?
for
Yeah.
real. We're four queens right here.
For the
I love
kids.
it. It's for the kids. That's right. That's right.
We'll invite you to her concert she does at the mill. Okay.
Yes.
We are there.
I'm the mill, baby. I love it.
Hannah, Montana. We're there.
Well,
All right.
go for it, Mel, because I know you're headed that way.
Yes. So, ladies, before we end, we always do a very fun question. And since we're talking about music and Miley, if you had to karaoke for your life, like your life depended on it, what song would you sing? Like you have to rock it out.
Crush it.
We'll survive as long as I know how to love. I know I'll be alive.
Yeah, Shannon.
Love it.
She's ready. Let's
Even sing
go.
it. We didn't even tell you how to sing it. You were here for it, Shannon.
I'm all in
Yes.
all the time.
I am not singing for you, but it would probably be one of many. It would probably be some type of Leonard Skinner. That's one of my favorite.
Ooh, we love
Oh,
him. Sweet Home Alabama. Let's go. Well, as always, thank you so much for your time and all of your knowledge and your information. I'm going to be walking down the hallways doing what's the piece and okay? Love
Yep.
that. That one's so
There's
great.
so many good ones.
So many, and I'm gonna go research that now. Everybody, thank you so much for your time. Listeners, thank you for being here. Watchers, we appreciate you as well, and thank you for all that you do for kids. This is amazing. Listeners, thank you for your support, and we can't wait to kick it with you again. Hannah, have a great one.
thanks, guys.